I'm Deborah Nas, and I'm here to discuss with you how to successfully design with new technologies in mind, how to apply technology in a meaningful way and to make sure that you deliver value to your end customers, and that those products that you deliver and those services that you deliver have strong benefits and the least possible reasons for people to experience any resistance against those new technologies. Now, to start off, I believe that technology is great fun. It's great to work on. It triggers your imagination, it triggers your creativity, and you're allowed to create new things. But it's also very challenging, and it's even more challenging when we talk about tech innovation, because you're developing tech products. What are tech products? Products that for their core functionality rely on new technologies, mostly digital technologies. It's often a combination between physical and digital, but at least those digital technologies play a key role in what value you will be delivering. And those new technologies often unlock new functionality. They allow users to do new things they couldn't do before, or they can do now in a different, more convenient or easier or faster or better way. But those technologies, they're not just bringing us new functionality, they usually also raise resistance. They trigger resistance. And you have to realize that when you design products and services, that you as a tech innovator are not the average consumers. You're way better informed. You're probably more open to new technologies than the average consumer. And what you see might primarily be the benefits, the pros that your product offers. But any product, any innovation has pros and cons. And very often the general public or society at large focuses on the possible negative impacts of new technologies. And we see recurring patterns in those arguments, and it varies per segment, but within a segment we see recurring patterns. And let's have a look at the communication and media sector. I'm going to take you through a little trip through history, and we're going to start all the way back at the invention of writing. And writing was the technology of the moment. And the Greek philosophers argued that writing would be very bad for people's brains. Because if we would write everything down, we don't have to remember things. And if we don't have to remember things at some point in time, we can no longer remember things. Fast forward to the 16th century, information overload, not about the internet, but about the printing press. There would be way too many books. It would put stress on people's brains, but it would also instill forgetfulness in our brains. Why? Because if we can find all the information in books, we don't have to remember it. Until that point in time, knowledge transfer was a social process. People came together, one told the story to the other, but now people could read it in books and could find it at any time they needed it in books. Books became a success. At some point in time, newspapers arrived, and newspapers would put people in social isolation. Why? Because until that point in time, people came together in the newspit to exchange the latest information. But with a newspaper, people would withdraw in their homes and read the newspaper to learn about the news. Bad for the development of your social skills, and also bad for integration in society. Newspapers became a success, and at some point in time, a little bit later, schools arrived. And schools were violently opposed by parents because it would put too much stress on the brains of their children, but it would be also really, really bad for their health to lock them up in classrooms all day. The telephone, wired at the time, was an invasion of our privacy. The TV generation, of which I'm one, would never learn how to read or write. And when the internet arrived, we saw the most bizarre headlines. The internet was bad for everything. Now, one of the articles went viral, and it was called, "Is Google Making Us Stupid?" And Alan Carr, who wrote this article, argued that if we can find all the information we need on Google, we don't have to remember things. And if we don't have to remember things at some point in time, we can no longer remember things. Basically the same argument that was once used against writing. So as a society at large, we tend to put the spotlight on the possible negative effects of new technologies, not on their benefits. And because of this effect, users or potential users of your future innovation might have difficulty envisioning those benefits and understanding how it can enrich their lives. And that's also a little bit related to what Steve Jobs once said. Well, a lot of the times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And this quote made a big impact because by now, many tech innovators adopted this quote and use it as an argument to not do any market research or not do any user research. That is completely wrong because, especially in this case, Steve Jobs is somebody with a strong intuition and a strong sort of feeling for what users need and what could make them happy. And not everybody has that same level of intuition. There's one other thing that reinforced this viewpoint amongst tech startups, and that's Eric Ries. He wrote the book, The Lean Startup. And he says the only way to win is to learn faster than anyone else. Meaning you build something, you put it out into real life, you measure, you learn from it, and you adjust, and you go through cycles again and again and again. So amongst tech innovators, the tech startup community, and even agile corporate innovation teams, the common belief is people don't really know what they want. You have to build it as soon as possible, and then you pivot your way to product market fit. And a pivot is when you find out that you're not on the right track and you either change your product to make it better fit the market, or you keep the product but you change your market, you move to another market. And that way you're trying to figure out how to get to the best fit between the product and the market. And tech startups go through different stages. They often start off with a prototype to just prove that their concept works, that the technology works, and that you can turn it into a product. Then they develop a minimal viable product, the smallest version of their product that delivers value to end users. And then they pivot their way to product market fit. And that product market fit is sort of this magical moment of which you know as an innovator, we hit the right spot. We have the innovation sweet spot and we're now going to go into the next phase and we're ready to scale. And that's also a very important moment what investors are looking for, because startups who found their product market fit are ready for scaling and therefore a good company to invest your money in, because there's a lower chance of failure. But reality is that 70% of startups fail, and that's quite a lot. And they either go bankrupt or they barely can sustain themselves. So they're far from successful. So how come? Well, partly because of that belief that we just discussed, that users don't know what they want. You have to build as soon as possible. So teams are thinking from the inside out and not from the user perspective. And in agile innovation processes, there's very little room for elaborate research. So I tried to understand what is going on and what can we do to help tech teams develop better tech products. How can we lower the chance of failure and increase the chance of success? How can we help them find product market fit faster and more successfully? So I deep dived all sorts of theories: behavioral psychology, habit formation, technology resistance theories, retention theories, new product success factors, you name it. And I found little pieces of the puzzle everywhere, but it was still a very incomplete puzzle. So I did a lot of case studies to understand what is in the product that makes it a success. If you look at a successful startup, there are many factors that go into making a successful startup. It's about the team, it's about distribution channels, it's about funding, and many other things. But at the core, if the product is not good, it's very difficult to become successful. So I really looked at successful startups and failed startups, looked at their product, and tried to understand what's in the product that make them successful or fail. And it all boils down to you have a target user, and that target user has needs. Now, on the other side, you're going to offer them a value proposition, and that value proposition delivers value through product features and the user experience. And you, as a designer, it's your job to make those users fall in love with your value proposition. And to be able to do that, you need to find the right balance and need to understand the balance between the value you're delivering and the possible drawbacks, and disadvantages and risks that your value proposition brings. So you have the value part and you have the sort of the resistance part. The benefits are what drive people forward, what makes them want to get your and use your value proposition. And the resistance part are some sort of the things that hold them back. They might see the value, but they're not going to use it anyway because it might be too expensive, it might be too big or too heavy, but there might also be risks involved. And if the balance is off, they will not adopt your product. And the balance can be off because the value that you're offering is simply too small, but it could also be off because the value is good, but there are way too many drawbacks or risks involved, and therefore the resistance is too large. So how do you know what your problem is, what you need to fix? Well, if you have a product concept and you show it to users and you get a response that says like, so what? Why is this better than my existing solution? I don't really see the value. I don't really get it. Then probably your value is too low. You need stronger benefits to deliver value. An example of a failed product because it delivered insufficient value is Juicero. This was the sort of the Nespresso of smoothies. A $700 smart smoothie machine connected through Wi-Fi so it could read the barcode of the pouches that went in and then produce the perfect smoothie for you. But the value was simply too low to balance off that price tag and having another device on your counter. And if you really wanted to, you could also take those pouches and squeeze them by hand. Obviously, this was a failed product, but before they failed, they burned through over $100 million from their investors. So this was quite an expensive failure. It could also go wrong because you raised too much resistance. I'm afraid that, or it's too expensive, I will lose this and this, I think it's difficult, my current way of doing things is fine. And then there's one argument which is actually very interesting. It could be both. When people say, yeah, it's fine, but it's just not for me. That's the polite way of saying either I don't see the value or I think the drawbacks are too big. An example of a product that failed because of too much resistance is Google Glass. If you remember this product when it was launched, Google didn't think about the applications. They just built a great technical product and they left it up to the imagination of the developer community to come up with new ideas and develop applications for that Google Glass. But Google Glass was in violation of sort of our social norms because it was people felt it was an invasion of privacy. You never knew if somebody who was wearing a Google Glass was actually filming you or not. And people who wore one were actually called glassholes. Now, it doesn't mean that this is actually a failed product. It's a failed consumer product. But they made a pivot and turned it to the industry markets. And there it's very successful. So Google Glass Enterprise, this is the latest version, is very much used in factories where people need both hands, but also would like to have additional information at hand. So you need to think about ways to strengthen your benefits and minimize possible resistance, mitigate that resistance. But how do you do that? Well, first of all, you need to understand what drives this. And if we look at the benefits, there are three types of benefits or three types of value you can deliver through benefits. It's value on a personal level, it's value in a user experience level, or it's value on a social environmental level. In other words, a better me, a better experience, and a better world. In the resistance side, it's a little bit more complex because it all boils down to risk management. And there are 6 types of risks that might occur in a user's mind. There are physical risks. For example, is this autopilot solution safe, or might I get in an accident and get physically hurt? There are operational risks. Does this smart lock really work? Or what happens? Can I still enter my home if my battery's dead? Is it easily hackable? Will people steal my stuff? There are economic risks. Is it worth the price? Or will it easily break down and will I have expensive repairs? There's risk of time loss. If I learn how to fly this drone, will it be fun enough to actually keep on doing it? And will I be able to fly it in enough places, or is it prohibited to do so? There are psychological risks. Where I feel as a user that that product is not in line with who I want to be or my personal values. For example, I would love to have an electric bike, but I feel I should cycle on my normal bike because it's more healthy for me. And I already don't do that much sport, so cycling is a way for me to be active. And I feel that's better for me, even though I would like to get an electric bike, but I don't. Then there's social risks. What will others think of me when I use this product? So that's what happened, for example, with Google Glass, but that's what also happened in the beginning with mobile phones. When I bought my first mobile phone, I was the first one in my environment, and I was doing my graduation project in 95, and my friends were just like really disapproving of it because why did I think I was so important that I needed a mobile phone? And therefore, those risks and those possible resistance, they also change over time. Now, everybody has a mobile phone and it's a normal thing to have. So these are the underlying drivers that drive value through benefits and that might drive resistance. But it's still not tangible enough to use as a designer. So I turned it into 37 design strategies. 24 to strengthen your product benefits, and 13 to mitigate consumer resistance. And you can use them to really think through possible benefits that you can offer or different ways to lower the resistance. And you can, when you start developing a new product, this is great for when you're developing a product that's new to the world, that doesn't exist at all. But it's also great if you want to develop a better version of existing products, and you can follow both routes. For example, let's say in the Netherlands we bike a lot, but very few people wear bicycle helmets. But there are a lot of accidents, and within those accidents, brain damage is actually a significant part of the injury that occurs. So it's beneficial if more people would wear a bicycle helmet. But people don't. So what can you do if you want to use technology, for example, to make a bicycle helmet that offers more value that people want to have? Because why don't they wear the bicycle helmet? There could be different reasons. They might underestimate the danger, but they might also feel that others might think that they are not a good cyclist, or that they're afraid of falling. It ruins your hairdo. It's one more thing to take along. There are many different reasons. So what can you do to counter that by offering more value? An example is, for example, this bicycle helmet. It's a smart connected bicycle helmet that offers value that is non-existent in traditional bicycle helmet. What does it have? It has light on the front, on the back, so it helps you be more safe. It has turning lights, which is great if you're cycling on an electric bike and going fast and want to take a corner and don't want to let go and want to keep both hands on that steer. It has speakers, so you can listen to music while also hearing the traffic around you, helping you to be more safe. And you can easily take phone calls while driving the bicycle, for example. So these types of solutions are a way to use technology to offer new value and maybe get a part of consumers to be interested in that bicycle helmet and overcome the resistance they had against the old product. The other route you can take is really follow the resistance route and really understand why do people want to or do not want to wear a bicycle helmet. And then you might come up with using technology for a completely different type of solution. For example, this Hufting helmet. I'll show you a short movie. And as you can see, it's actually an airbag and it's stuffed with technology and algorithms. And they claim it's safer than a traditional bicycle helmet. And it's invisible. So it's using technology to solve a problem in today's situation, basically. And it's the safest bicycle helmet is not a helmet. That's their claim. So what the design strategies help you do is to make sure that already in an early phase in the design process, you can think about how to increase the value through offering stronger benefits and how to mitigate resistance, reduce possible resistance by preventing possible risks or making them smaller for a consumer. And if it tips over to the right side, to the good side, and the value is stronger than the possible drawbacks, risks, and costs, then you are headed for quick market adoption. This is all described in the book Design Things That Make Sense, the Tech Innovator's Guide. It shows you an overview of all the design strategies, and then each design strategy has either 2, sometimes 4 pages that really drills it down. How can you do this? So each design strategy has a number of tactics how to make this happen, supported by real life examples from tech startups. And in the next video, I will explain how it works and how you can apply it. In the meantime, on the website, you can find cards for the design strategies, overviews, workshop manuals, and canvases to use in your workshops and use in a co-creative way to, together with your team, develop great tech products. I would say for now, go innovate.